part of what you do when you're a kid, when you're in elementary and middle school, is you learn United States history. You learn the history of your presidents. And we now have, because of Trump's past behavior, having a sexual encounter with an adult film star while his actual wife is pregnant. And that leads to hush money, which leads to a criminal charge, which leads to a statement on the stand from that adult film star. And now this is a part of the historical record. Stormy Daniels took the stand in the hush money trial of Donald Trump and filled the room with all kinds of tawdry, salacious details about her sexual encounter with Donald Trump, which of course he denies out of hand, but does seem like it actually happened. And people have all kinds of opinions about this. We'll look at what actually happened. And what I want to focus on is the thing no one seems to be thinking about. Again, unintended consequences down the line, because we're such a culture of instant gratification. We're not thinking about the results of this 10 years down the road or 100 years down the road. We'll look at the story from AP News. Stormy Daniels delivers shocking testimony about Trump, but trial hinges on business records. And you're going to see why people said she shouldn't have even been put on the stand. And odds are she was only allowed on the stand at some level to embarrass Donald Trump. It says, Donald Trump's defense attorney on Thursday accused Stormy Daniels of slowly altering the details of an alleged 2006 sexual encounter with Trump, trying to convince jurors that a key prosecution witness in the former president's hush money criminal trial cannot be believed. You've made all of this up, right? Trump's lawyer asked. No, Daniel shot back. As the jury looked on, the two women traded barbs over what Trump's lawyer said were inconsistencies in Daniel's description of the encounter with Trump in a Nevada hotel suite. He denies the whole story. But despite all the talk over what may have happened in that hotel room, despite the discomfiting testimony by the adult film actor that she consented to sex in part because of a power imbalance, the case against Trump doesn't rise or fall on whether her account is true or even believable. It's a trial about money changing hands, business transactions, and whether those payments were made to illegally influence the 2016 election. We're already in uncharted waters. We're in unprecedented territory with the former president of the United States and the current frontrunner by most available polling in the 2024 election being put on trial. He is being put on trial at the state level for a federal crime that he was never federally prosecuted for, which is why Trump supporters are saying this seems a lot like a witch hunt. This seems like really grasping for straws. At the same time, he is on trial, and all of this has to do with an alleged affair with an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, that was signed an NDA and then paid a whole bunch of money, $130,000 to not talk about it, which of course she has talked about it and written about it in her book. And she took the stand. And part of the issue people are pointing out is that, number one, she shouldn't have been on the stand. What happened in that hotel room doesn't actually affect what the trial is about. It is a distraction and it is a defamation of sorts. As you're going to see at the end of this video, the defamation is Trump putting himself in this situation in the first place. It is defaming and it is immoral and it is disappointing. So regardless, should she have been on the stand? Probably not. Did she stick to her story? It appears she didn't. And it's not just far right-wing extremists who think that. Here's Bill Maher, who is certainly a person of the left, kind of a classic liberal, who uniquely has an opinion because he sat down with Stormy Daniels and talked to her about this previously. And here's his take on how her story has changed.
And first I asked her why she had sex with Trump. Listen to that. And then listen to what she says after that. And then we're going to talk about the trial because it's quite a variance of what she said to me in 2018. Why did you Donald Trump?
I have no idea.
Okay, but you say it's not a Me Too case.
It is not a Me Too case. I mean, I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't attacked or raped or coerced or blackmailed. They tried to shove me in the Me Too box to further their own agenda. And first of all, I didn't want any part of that because it's not the truth. And I'm not a victim in that regard. That's
not what she's saying now. She's talking about he was bigger and blocking the way. It's all the Me Too buzzwords. She said there was a power imbalance of power for sure. My hands were shaking so hard. She said she blacked out. Blacked out? She's a porn star.
All right. So he starts making jokes that are not appropriate for the Clayton Tyner podcast at that point. But he's pointing out, I sat down with Stormy Daniels and she was very, very clear. There's no power imbalance. This was not a Me Too case. I was not attacked. This was fully consensual. And now she takes the stand and reverses that testimony. It just seems to be pointing at damaging Trump as significantly as possible. And so we'll see what happens. This looks like the only case that will happen prior to the election. We'll see what the verdict is. It seems like a shaky case, and it is tabloid fodder. It gives everyone an opportunity to look at Trump's past indiscretions. And is that fair? I don't know. When you sign up to be president of the United States, you can kind of assume that people are going to dig through every single bit of dirt that you have in your life as possible. And Donald Trump lived basically his entire adult life as a playboy, a philanderer, a ladies' man, and he has a lot of dirt to dig up. He has the Access Hollywood tape, and he has this encounter with Stormy Daniels, which is now officially a part of history. I mean, we have a former president, potentially future president, we'll see how the election goes, who is on the stand and has an adult film actress taking the stand, sharing with the world details about a sexual encounter that they had. And so what are we not thinking about? What I can't help but think about, because my mind is wired to typically think more future than present, is what are we leaving our kids? Here's what Proverbs 13 says. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. You see, I don't think we've had a situation, certainly in American history before, and maybe not in the history of the world, now that we're in the internet age, where we have the leader of an empire, the leader of the free world, who has a past history with a star. So how do we go about the future of historical education? Because that's part of what you do when you're a kid, when you're in elementary and middle school, is you learn United States history. You learn the history of your presidents. And we now have, because of Trump's past behavior, having a sexual encounter with an adult film star while his actual wife is pregnant. And that leads to hush money, which leads to a criminal charge, which leads to a statement on the stand from that adult film star. And now this is a part of the historical record. And look, you can learn in elementary or middle school about Bill Clinton, and they can use their words very, very carefully. And you can learn about Monica Lewinsky, and you can Google as a kid that whole thing to write a research paper on it. And you're going to be pretty safe. There's no images. There's no videos. Monica Lewinsky was an intern. She is not someone who made her career as someone who has sex on camera. Stormy Daniels is a different story. How does a 7th grader write about this crazy, unprecedented period in American history where we have these contentious elections, a global pandemic, a president on trial across multiple different charges? How does he write about that and look all of this up without accidentally looking at lewd images or videos of Stormy Daniels? I don't know. I'm not sure that you can assign this period out to someone in middle school, certainly not elementary school, high school, without them coming up on X-rated material. That's where we're at. And yes, it is because of prosecutions that seem to be unfair. If you just look at the fact pattern, regardless of political affiliation, they seem like very shaky cases. But more than that, because of the sordid past of Donald Trump and these decisions that he made. And we tend to just think right now. And if you're on the right, then you're thinking these trials are BS and he should win them and we got to walk away. And the more they put him on trial, the more they're boosting his poll numbers. And if you're on the left, you're thinking he's guilty and we got to get him and we got to put him in jail. But who's thinking about the future? And who's thinking about what we're leaving for our children? And who's thinking about the quality of political candidates left and right who have these kinds of histories and these kinds of interactions with people that our kids won't be able to safely Google in 20 years. Our grandkids won't be able to write research papers on without being exposed to things that none of us want them exposed to. The decisions that we make today, like leave an inheritance for our children's children. They're generational. Our decisions today are generational in nature. There's a great example of this in the life of King Josiah. His story's in 2 Kings, starting in chapter 22. He becomes king at only 8 years old. And there's been this huge string of evil kings. And then there's Josiah. And partly because Josiah has a righteous mom and he follows the ways of King David and he loves the Lord. When he turns about 26, the Jewish scriptures are discovered hidden in the temple, and he finds them, and it's the word of instruction from the Lord, and he just starts instituting changes. And what's been happening previous to him is there was a legacy of idolatry. And the reason that he couldn't find the scriptures is because they were in the back of the temple, buried underneath all the paraphernalia of idolatry. We read about this in 2 Kings 23. It says, then the king commanded the high priest and the priest of the second rank and the doorkeepers to bring out of the Lord's sanctuary. This is what was in the Lord's sanctuary. All the articles made for Baal, Asherah, and all the stars in the sky. He burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of the Kidron and carried their ashes to Bethel. Then he did away with the idolatrous priests the kings of Judah had appointed to burn incense at the high places. They had burned incense to Baal, to the sun, moon, constellations, and stars. He brought out the Asherah pole from the Lord's temple. This is a sex cult idol that's in the Lord's temple. And he burned it in the Kidron Valley, beat it to dust, and threw its dust on the graves of the common people. And he tore down, listen, the houses of male cult prostitutes that were in the Lord's temple, where women were weaving tapestries for Asherah. Again, the fertility cult, the sex goddess. This is what was in the temple. This is the legacy that he inherited from his father and his father's father. And look what he's doing. He's taking it all out. He's burning it. If it's still like in kind of large embers, he's beating it into dust and throwing it as far as the east is from the west. Why? Well, number one, to put people back in line with the Lord and what the Lord wants for his people. But number two, to spare his children and his children's children and on through the generations of having to come up under this in their life as well. I just think that we're not considering our grandkids who will be looking back on this time of history, and so much of what happened will hopefully be mind-blowing because we'll have found some common sense by then, but also will just be perverse in nature and something that they really don't even have the capacity to look at. In all of our decisions, personal, political, communal, we should be thinking not just about right now, but about our children's children. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you are subscribed so you can stay up to date with all new content. And if you want early access, exclusive content, and monthly live Q&As, make sure to check out patreon.com/ClaytonTime.